Welcome to Chapter 6 of U.S. Government, Langston University. I'm Instructor Elix, and I'm here to guide you through the U.S. Congress today. Now, the U.S. Congress is the first institution that was created when the Constitution was adopted. The Congress has the overall power, major power of our government. Even though it seems that the President of the United States, which is the executive branch, has all the power, which it seems like the Supreme Court has a lot of power, but the framers of the Constitution, when they wrote the Constitution, focused first on the U.S. Congress. And in Article 1, it's all about establishing the U.S. Congress and the functions of the U.S. Congress. And when you think about it, when you look at the total sum of what the Congress does, the Congress is the most powerful branch of all the three. Yet, even though the executive branch and the judicial branch checks both of them, checks Congress to make sure that it remains true to the course of what the Constitution has set for it. All things, in order for anything to change in this country, goes through the U.S. Congress. And the U.S. Congress consists of two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So let's move forward, go through the PowerPoints. I hate PowerPoints, you know that. I would rather be lecturing in front of you. So we're just using PowerPoints as a guide. But for the sake of this video, let's go through the PowerPoints and we'll get right to it. All right, Chapter 6, Congress. Let's get started. Now, our objectives here today is describe the constitutional provisions that define Congress, analyze the ability of members of Congress to represent their constituents, describe how incumbency and redistricting help members of Congress stay in office, assess the roles of leaders, political parties, and committees in Congress, describe the powers of Congress, and describe the factors that influence how members of Congress make decisions, and evaluate the strategic interactions between Congress, the President, and the courts, and the people. The roots of the U.S. Congress. As I started out, the U.S. Congress, this institution, one of the three institutions that was created in the Constitution, was and is the first article of the Constitution, Article 1. Under Article 1, a bicameral legislature was created. That means bicameral means two houses. It consists of a House of Representatives and Senate. The House of Representatives are created by population. So according to the amount of population that you have in your congressional district, well, in your state, it will determine how many members of the House of Representatives you'll have. Now, as in the Senate, there is equal membership or equal representation in the Senate for each state. So each state, no matter how small it has, will have two senators. And the smallest state in population will have at least one U.S. representative. One of the things that have come up is the state of Wyoming. Forever, the state of Wyoming has always had two U.S. senators, which every state has, and one U.S. representative. It's all because the population was so small. After the 2020 census, which was just released just over a month ago, the state of Wyoming is gaining a U.S. representative. Its population has expanded to the point that it requires another U.S. representative. So that means before it was at least, which the qualifications now is that you must have 777,000 people in population in order to have one U.S. representative. Now it has gone beyond that and it requires a second one. Apportionment, again, this is how members of the House of Representatives are determined. After each U.S. census, it adjusts the House seats and allocate it to each state. So apportionment, what it does, it's like the state of Wyoming again. It's gaining a seat in the House of Representatives, but the state of California or state of New York or state of Ohio, many of those states are losing a seat. Texas is gaining a seat. Florida is gaining a seat. So this is apportionment. Depends upon your population. If you gain or lose a certain amount of population, you will either gain or lose a U.S. representative. Lawmaking. The most important power given to Congress is lawmaking. All laws, understand this, all laws go through Congress. All laws must pass through the House of Representatives, pass through the Senate, and must be given to the president to sign and to approve. Now, there is other things that have almost the functions of law that the president can do or different agencies can do. But regardless, all laws start in Congress. Now, representing the American people, we're going to look at the makeup of congressional demographics and representative strategies. We want to see who actually represents the American people. Understand this, folks, though, before we get into this. In order for you to get proper representation for your district, for your state, for wherever you live, you got to vote. If you don't vote, you don't get the proper representation. Now, under congressional demographics, most members of Congress are better educated than the general populations. 2/3 of the members hold advanced degrees. What this means is that 2/3 of Congress either holds a master's degree, a law degree, or a doctorate of some sort, be it Juris Doctorate or a PhD or a medical degree. Most members of Congress are wealthier than the general population, especially in the Senate. Most senators are millionaires. But a good chunk of U.S. representatives, they come very close to that. One of the things that has happened in the brand new Congress that was sworn in January of 2021 is the increase in representative minority representation. Now, when this was taking place back in 2020, it was referring to 2018. I mean, the 2020 Congress that came into play. Now, the 2020 Congress, which was sworn in January, back in January 1st, is the largest group or the largest Congress that have minority representation. And what I mean by minority representation, it has the largest number of Blacks, largest number of Hispanics, Asians, Natives, everyone, and most of all, women in the history of the United States. it was weird, because when you look at a picture just less than 20 years ago, you see mostly just faces of one group. But today, when you look at the picture of the U.S. representative, when they take the overall photo, you can see a mixture, a swath, a huge swath of minority representation in Congress. And this is a good thing. Some people may not think so, but it is a good thing. That means all voices are beginning to be heard and represented. And when people feel that they're being more representative, people tend to take more part in their government. Now, representative strategies. There are three kinds. There's the trustee type, which means the representative uses their own judgment. What that truly means is, let's say if you were elected to Congress as a U.S. representative or as a senator. Now, this example really applies more to senators. You go and govern or write bills or represent your state as a trustee. That means you make your own judgment about what is right for the people you represent. You make the decision as a leader of the people you represent. That is a sign of a trustee. Now, a delegate is a representative follow the wishes of their constituents. That means the U.S. House of Representatives. That's what they were there for. That's what Congress wants. It's one of the reasons why members of the House of Representatives have only 2-year terms, because they are to reflect the passions, the emotions, the changes of the public, and is supposed to give government that part, that view, that voice of the changing passions of the government. So the representative, if you are a U.S. representative and you are elected to that office, doesn't matter if you're Democratic or Republican, you are to represent that entire district. And yet, even though maybe as a Democrat, you were elected into that office by a majority group of people and probably the majority of your party, you must represent the passions and the beliefs of the majority of your district. If it's the other way, you have to do it the other way. Now, a political, this is a new term that has just started to be used within the last 10 years. A political is an alternative type of representation, depending on the issue. That means, and this is something that I'm seeing more and more from senators and representatives, they're more political. That means they simply rest on a specific issue, and that's what they use their judgment or use their votes to push for. So let me give you an example of that. Let's just say a conservative person was elected in an area or in a district that is usually very liberal. And a bill comes up in the House of Representatives or in the Senate or in Congress in general that either limits abortion or just totally gets rid of abortion. Well, being a politico, that person who has been elected, who has a stance on abortion or anti-abortion, will simply vote for that bill because they personally are anti-abortion. It is part of the trustee function because they use their own judgment, but it's the issue that they stand on against. Now, the district in which they're representing especially in the House of Representatives, may not side with that and may totally reject that. But being a political, being a person who's playing to the politics of their base, the politics of their party, they will stick with the decision that they made, not necessarily following the wishes of the people in which they represent. Now, if we talk about the Senate, who should be trustees, if they're using their own judgment based upon all the information that they have, this is not necessarily political. But if it's just simply following the whim and wishes of their politics, then it's political. Incumbency. 96% of incumbents who seek re-election win. 96% of incumbents who seek re-election win. What does this mean? Incumbency simply means that you are re-elected to office. That means you currently have the office, and your next election that you will be involved in for that office makes you the incumbent. That means you have the office and you could get it back. 96% of people keep their jobs in Congress unless there's a big push. So think about this. So in 2018, because of President Trump's policies, a major turnover of Congress occurred in which the Democrats regained control of Congress for the first time since 2012. And that, of course, wiped out most of the long-term incumbents who have been there for at least 1, 2, maybe 3 terms. In this past election in 2020, this number currently stands at 96% of the incumbents who sought a re-election kept their position. Now, the reason why for this is severalfold, and let's go to that. What incumbency has some advantages, and these are some of the advantages to incumbency. Name recognition. Name recognition is one of the most big advantage of incumbency. If you heard a person get elected, you know their name. You see their signs everywhere. And if you're like most people who go to work back and forth every day and not really think about the issues, but you see this person's name, you hear this person's name in the media, you see this person's name on social media, when it's time for most people to vote who don't really look at the issues, look at what this incumbent may have done, they just simply vote for a name that they recognize. And that's powerful. And if they don't recognize your name and you're running against the incumbent, you're gone. Credit claiming. One of the biggest things politicians do, especially members of Congress, they claim credit for things that they've done for their district, either brought money, jobs, or what have you. Even though it's more complex than what they claim, but the fact that they voted on a certain issue, they can claim victory over that issue. Casework. Well, casework simply means that if you have an issue that your member of Congress can resolve, be it with a federal agency, be it with certain state issues in which they can have influence, or just providing you information, you are a type of person that knows that your member of Congress, be it the U.S. representative or the U.S. senator, works for you. And because of that, you will vote for them because they helped you out. The franking privilege. The franking privileges means that once you're a member of Congress, you can send out any correspondence that you want to in the mail for free. Get this, any correspondence you want to send out through the mail, if you're incumbent, you can send it out for free. Access to the media. Well, members of Congress have easier access to the media. They make friends with members of the media. They talk to members of the media. They connect with members of the media. So if they have a message that's on a policy of either the president or a message that has a policy of their party or anything that they personally support, media is usually there to listen to. Ease in fundraising. When you're a incumbent, you're considered a winner. So basically, you have people, especially people who are your base that represents you, you're there. You can get money easier than the person who's challenging you. So you can pretty much go or use your contacts to gain money to help you with your campaign. Experience in running a campaign. Experience in running a successful campaign is everything. You know the things that you need to run that campaign. And an incumbent knows that or how to run a successful campaign. Here's an example. Say if I'm a U.S. representative in the 5th District here in Oklahoma, and I won in 2020, and I was sworn in January 1st. By 2022, I'm at the end of my term, and I run for a second term. But let's say I don't have a challenger. What do? I still run a campaign. I still raise funds. And the reason why I do that is because of my experience, knowing that I need to make sure that my people, my district who vote for me, those I represent know I'm still there. So not only I raise funds on the issues, this is also the reason why I campaign, but my name becomes more recognized. I can claim more credit. I can send more information out to the mail for free. The media will have access to me and want to hear what I say. And I will put out campaign signs that will say thank you to the people of the 5th District for not having an opponent against me and trusting me for another term. That is the power of incumbency. And that is the experience of running a campaign with someone challenging you or not. Redistricting. Simply put, if it's after the 10-year period in which the census came out, redistricting can come around to favor me, can make me stronger. The new district that I may be in may have more of the people that elected me in the office and that support what I believe. So redistricting can easily come my way. Even better, if I belong to the party of the state that controls the redistricting process, I will be in a better position. Now, redistricting, this is very important. Redistricting is every 10 years, all the districts within states, all the U.S. congressional districts for members of the House of Representatives are redrawn to reflect the new population changes. And who has the power of redistricting? Each individual state and each individual state legislators. So if there's a party that has control of that legislator, that party, depending on the laws of the state, will do the redistricting in the state legislators. And what they will do and what they have done, because we have a name for it, they will redistrict, they will create the districts that will help them maintain control. And when you do that, it's called gerrymandering. Basically, drawing a district in favor of a party or a candidate, or drawing a district that is not favorable to a party and candidate. One of the things that the Supreme Court has come back to say about gerrymandering, that it can be done, but it cannot be done based upon race. But it can be done just simply on political issues. So one of the things about gerrymandering, you'll get these weird looking districts, these districts that just simply just don't belong. It's all because the other districts around them are created in favor of the party that's in office. And the districts that look very, very weird are usually districts that encompass the people that that are part of the other party that's against them. Right here, Texas 35th district back in 2012. This is how this district looks. It's weird, right? Look at all the other districts in Texas. This was all done to keep a stronghold for one group. This is gerrymandering. Now, how is Congress organized? Congress is organized three ways. The leadership in the House of Representatives, leadership in the Senate, and the committee system. Here's how it is. In the House of Representatives, you will always have a speaker. Now, a speaker is voted by the entire body of the House of Representatives. Now, if a specific party has control of the House of Representatives, that means they have most of the votes in the House of Representatives, and usually that speaker represents their party. So right now, the Democrats have control of the House of Representatives, so the Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi. And then you have the majority leader, which is the second in command to the Speaker, and the majority whip, which is the person who keeps all the members of the party in line. Now, even though this chart shows that the Republicans are in control of this, but this is an old chart because this has flipped, especially since 2018. So we know this chart came out in 2016. But right now, to look at this, the Speaker of the House creates uses the committee system to filter through different bills, and the Speaker of the House and the majority of the House of Representatives create the committee rules. Now, the minority party, like right today, is Republican, and the minority leader is in charge of their party. The minority whip is in charge of the discipline of the party. And then, of course, you have members who are all in the different committees and different congressional special caucuses or groups. In the Senate, it is somewhat the same thing. Let me go back here. You have vice president or president pro tempore of the Senate. Now, the person in charge of the Senate is the one true function of the vice president is being the president of the Senate. Now, the vice president is only used in the Senate to break a tie. The vice president has no other power other than that. Now, the president pro tempore of the Senate is usually the leader of the majority, or basically the Speaker of the Senate. And like the House before, you have a majority leader, majority whips, or minority leader or minority whips. And you have the different committees in the Senate. Now, we just went through all of this here. All right, but let's go over the committee system. Now, in the committee system in Congress, be it in the Senate or the House, these committees are in charge of getting bills through or killing them. Let's look at it from this point of view. The vast majority of bills are killed in the House or the Senate. The vast majority of bills are killed in the House and the Senate, and it's because of the committee system. Now, there are different types of committees. They're like standing committees. These standing committees are committees which are permanent, no matter what, like the Finance Committee, like the Judicial Committee, like the Defense Committee. These are permanent committees within both the House and the Senate. Joint committees. These are committees in which both the House and the Senate are members of. One of the big committees out there is the Conference Committee. The Conference Committee is the special committee in which both members of the House Representatives and the Senate join together in this committee. If a bill that passes the House and a bill passes the Senate, and that bill is designed to do the same function, it will go to the Conference Committee. And in the Conference Committee, members of the Senate, members of the House go over that bill, change the language of the bill, and make sure the language of the bill is good enough to pass both houses of Congress. And then that bill is released back into the House of Representatives, the House of Senate for a final vote. And if the bill passes both houses with the same wording, it will go to the president to sign. And then there's select or special committees. When certain committees or certain things happen, like impeachment of presidents or judges or certain investigations, select committees are created to investigate those issues. Committee chairs. Committee chairs are usually appointed by either the Speaker of the House in the House of Representatives or the President pro tem of the Senate. And they usually are led by the majority in office. Committee memberships are determined by the Speaker of the House in the House of Representatives or the Senate pro tem in the Senate. The power of Congress. The power of Congress, the biggest power of Congress is its lawmaking function. It is everything in the American government. And in order to make any changes in society, in government, it must go through the US Congress or state legislators, depending on the level. But if it's anything that will affect the entire country, it must go through the US Congress. So in order to make a law, first, you must have a US representative or a Senate, depending which house this bill is going to get started, to sponsor a bill. So let's use you for an example. You want to write a bill which basically will stop the illegal use or stop the use of vapes. Let's just say that. You want to make the use of vapes or the manufacture of vapes in the United States illegal. Well, if you do that, you first need to either create a bill or give an idea to a US representative or Senate. Once this occurs, or you have a bill, the US representative or Senate will refer that bill to the House Speaker or the Senate Pro Tem. Then the leadership will go through all the different bills that are up for referral. And the staff of the Speaker of the House, the staff of the President Pro Tem of the Senate will look at all of these bills, all of these proposals for a bill. And they will determine which ones will be referred to committee. In the House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House and their members will get this hopper, literally a hopper, a giant hopper of bills at the beginning of the session. And they will go through which bills, which should be up for consideration or not. So it depends. It largely depends on your relationship with the Speaker of the House if a bill gets referred to not. So what will happen is if it's a bill that the House of Representatives or the Speaker of the House believes that we need to do something about it, they will refer it to a committee. If not, they simply would throw it into a recycle bin. It's that simple. It's thrown into a recycle bin. When it's referred to a committee, the bill will get a number. It will be placed into a register and will be, which this is called a markup, and will be referred to a specific committee in order to be heard and to be tailored and to flesh out all the flaws and flesh out all the details that are needed. Once it's referred to a committee, that committee will look it over and decide to refer it to a subcommittee. That's a committee that's below a larger committee. And even in a subcommittee, if it's a bill that is so specific on something, it may be referred to another subcommittee. And in that committee, it will be changed, amended, what have you, and it could die. But if that bill survives that subcommittee, it will go to the other subcommittee that's above it. It will again maybe amended, changed, and it will be argued in committee, and it could die. But if it does survive, it goes up to the committee as a whole, the larger committee. Again, this bill may be changed, may ask for amendments, it may die. And then it may pass. And if it does, it goes to the whole floor of the House of Representatives, or it goes to the whole floor of the Senate. Now, when this bill hits the Senate or hits the floor of the House, this bill must get approval from the Speaker of the House in order to go to the floor of the Senate. And then, Speaker of the House must go to the floor of the House of Representatives or get approval from the President Pro Tem. Once on the floor, this bill could either be changed or modified again, be recommended to be sent back to committee, could get killed, or could get tabled, which means literally placed onto a table, and hopefully that it would die unless someone brings it off the table, or could get approved. And if the bill is approved, it actually has to go to the President Pro Tem or the Speaker of the House's office again, and even the Speaker of the House may add a change to it, which may send it back to the floor for another approval. But let's just say it got approved in the House of Representatives, and a similar bill to it was approved in the Senate. Well, since they're very similar, and since in order for a bill to pass Congress, it must have the same language and be approved in both houses. It will go to a conference committee. And this is where a conference committee will hash out the details, make sure the language in the bill matches both sides, and sent back to the House and the Senate. Now, we already have a very good idea how it could die in the House of Representatives. In the Senate, it's the same way, but only difference is in the Senate, the bill can be placed on hold, or a bill could be subject to a filibuster. That means a U.S. Senator can stand up and talk continuously for as long as they can stay on the floor, long enough to kill the bill or persuade enough people to vote against it. And in order to stop a filibuster as of today, you must have 60 senators in order to stop a filibuster. Especially since the Senate is equally divided, and the only vote that breaks a tie is of the vice president, which is Kamala Harris. Chances are a filibuster can go on as long as that U.S. senator talks. And it can kill bills, but it may not. But let's say it didn't. And both this bill that went to the conference committee has passed the House and the Senate. That means it goes to the president for final approval. And this is where the president is considered the chief legislator. This is the only legislative act truly that a president has. Well, one of the few is 3 acts that the president has. The president can sign the bill into law. The president can veto the bill, that means kill it. Or the president can use what is called a pocket veto. And what that means when it is considered a pocket veto is that the president receives the bill and leaves the bill on the president's desk. And it just sits there. And when that specific legislative session is over, the president can simply throw it away because the bill must be signed by the president within the legislative session in which the bill was passed by Congress. That's how a pocket veto works. But let's just say the president just vetoed it in general. Well, if there's enough support in Congress, 2/3 support in the House, 2/3 support in the Senate, the Congress can override a president's veto and approve the bill themselves without any voice from the president. That's the lawmaking function, and that's the powerful function. But also understand the power of the purse is in the House of Representatives, because all bills that has to do with budgetary concerns must start in the House of Representatives. And this is a chart of how a bill becomes law. The budgetary function. Congressional Budget Act of 1974 established levels of spending, reconciliation process to limit debates, and pork and pragmatic requests. We basically went through that. The oversight function. As I said before, on the budgetary function, Congress basically goes over every budgetary bill, investigates, limits the time of debate, and either approve or disapprove of the new budget. The oversight function. Congress has the power to oversight. They can start committees in order to investigate different actions of not only individuals within Congress or judicial or in the executive branch, or they can have congressional review or investigations of any issue that they want to consider. That's congressional review. Confirmation of presidential appointees. That is of the Senate. President may appoint members to the presidential cabinet, or may appoint Supreme Court justices or justices to different districts. The Senate confirms this. Also, the Senate confirms any treaties that the president may make as well. That is the oversight function. The War Powers Act, if a president decides to launch a military campaign, say against Mexico, the president must notify all members of Congress within 48 hours of that action. Congress has 30 days to approve or disapprove that action. And upon disapproval of that action, the president has an additional 60 days to withdraw all troops. That is the War Powers Resolution. That is the War Powers Act. And that, even though delegates part of what Congress has, which is Congress is the only body that can declare war, that delegated a part of congressional authority over to the president. However, you see that the president, in the spirit of the Constitution, still must get congressional approval. How does members of Congress make decisions? Well, they make decisions based on party politics, what their party or their base believe in, individual constituents, that means the citizens that they represent, those ideas, those voices of the citizens that they represent, a member of the House of Representatives who is a delegate, who is swayed by the people in their district, listens to their constituents and makes decisions on that. Colleagues and caucuses, other members of the House of Representatives or Senate, they talk to their colleagues or whatever group or caucuses that they belong to within Congress, helps them make a decision. Interest groups, lobbyists, and political action committees have influence on a member of Congress's decision. And their staff and support agencies also influence this. So a member of Congress, be it in the House of Representatives or being a senator, has different voices. But let me tell you, this will stand true no matter what. The constituents will be heard no matter what. And if you feel that as a constituent, as a person who votes, that your voice is not heard, then you stand up, you get people together who feel the same way, and you make sure on election day that this person is no longer representing you. Yes, the vote works. And the reason why the vote works is because Constitution spells it out. For all of those of you who are alienated because the ideology that you've learned from your parents, the people that are around you, just for your general frustration at voting, if you want to change things in Congress, you got to get people out to vote, to move representatives that don't respond or not be holding or accountable to you. But if you sit there and say, well, my vote doesn't count, sure, it won't count. And when you, as one person, says that, you not only eliminate your vote, you eliminate about 100 votes, because the people you talk to, the people you interact with, you influence. And when they hear that from you, they adopt that from you, and it spreads like wildfire. So understand, your vote counts. Your opinion counts. You have to stand up for it. Political parties has huge influence on members who vote, especially in a divided government. However, constituents, people who live, work, and vote in a member's district, determine how that person should vote. Colleagues and caucuses, special interest caucuses or log rolling may influence. Research and data and fundraising from interest groups and lobbies will also influence. Staff and support agencies also will influence because of the information that they receive. However, the ultimate influencer is you, the voter. Towards reform and balancing institutional power. Congress and the executive, Congress and the judicial, Congress and the people. Congress and the executive. These are all different ways in which the president and Congress, through the different acts, try to reform both the executive branch and Congress. The Tenure of Office Act limited the tenure of the President of the United States. It eventually became a constitutional amendment which limits the President of the United States to 2 terms. However, the Tenure of Office Act came through again to limit the terms of U.S. representatives and senators. However, it was dealt as unconstitutional because it wasn't expressly or enumerated in the Constitution to limit the terms of members of Congress in the Constitution. And the only way you're going to get that done is through a constitutional amendment. Also, fluctuations in power determine what remedy to reform the executive branch or Congress. The different power shifts will either reform Congress or make it more of the same. Since FDR, Congress has ceded power to the president. Yes, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, more power from Congress due to congressional laws have given presidents more power that was vested in Congress, which I believe, and this is my own belief, that more power should be taken away from the president and brought back into Congress. Judicial review, the basic check that the judicial branch has over Congress is judicial review. Any law that is passed by Congress and anyone who challenges it legally, Congress has the right to review that law and declare it unconstitutional. I said that the wrong way. Any law that's passed by Congress that has been challenged by a citizen, the judicial branch has every right to review that law and declare it constitutional or unconstitutional. Also, Congress has the power over or to check against the judicial branch by changing the jurisdiction of federal courts or by impeachment when a justice has done the wrong thing. Congress and the people. The people's branch is the House of Representatives, and the people ultimately determines who keeps their job in Congress. If you don't think your U.S. representative or your senator is doing what they are supposed to do for the people of your state or your congressional district, vote them out. If you're disappointed because you lose, well, you lose. But in order for you to do it, you have to generate popular support in order to remove someone or to keep someone. But not voting is the reason why most members of Congress are reelected 96% of the time. Because only a small group who vote, that means that small group pretty much controls the country. And that small group is not special interests, it's not corporations, it's a small group of people who vote continuously and consistently. Now, I'm at the end of my lecture now, and I want to thank you for listening to me. But I just want you to understand, Congress is a body that is for the people, by the people, and is the branch that has the most power. Congress can take away power from the president and can add power to the president. Congress can give more power to the judicial branch or take it away. Congress has the power of the budget over all the branches of government. The only provision in the branch of government that Congress cannot really strip down is judges' salaries, because It specifically states in the Constitution that Congress must maintain a salary and continue to keep it going. However, for staff and other expenditures that the judicial staff and the executive staff under the president has, Congress can limit that. Congress is the big boy on the block. It is the leading institution. It's the institution that is closest to the people. And if people want to change it, they must get out and vote. And that's the only way to change it. So for those of you who are alienated up here, stop being alienated up here and start using these to work and get people to believe in what you believe. And you can change Congress to look like you. Until next time, this is Chapter 6, and I'm Instructor Elix. Remember to do your very best, to always think critically, and God bless you all. I will see you later.